Hello, everybody. Much anticipated, never duplicated. Welcome back to the Black Butterfly Podcast. My name is Amara Wakefield.
Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Black Butterfly Podcast, and I am your host, Candace Wilson.
And we got a special guest tonight. Unusual timing, right? Because scheduling set us back a couple of times. But to the incomparable, amazing Chelsea Whittington. We are so excited for this interview because we've been actually exchanging messages since February. That's what I found out today. And so we're excited to have you here and to just talk about yourself. Before we get started, do you or Candace have any open thoughts, openly thoughts as we, in this conversation?
Well, I just like to welcome Chelsea because, yes, we have been playing tag, trying to get her on the show since February. Her schedule and then our schedules were not aligning, but she's here now, and we thank you. We appreciate you and welcome.
Well, thank you so much. And I am always humbled by any opportunity where I get a chance to be on a platform where I can share my brand, share my story, but most important, motivate anybody who may be under the sound of my voice, whether they're on the fence to become an entrepreneur, to take the next step in their careers, get some tips on how to elevate or shine a brighter light on their brands. I'm always looking for that type of opportunity. So thank you for having me. And I'm a true believer that this happens only in God's time. February, March, April, June, May, June, those weren't the right times. But July 7th, today, as day as such as this, is ordained, and we are in divine order.
Right on. She come
Thank
with
you.
fire.
Come on with the spiritual aspect of it all.
Yeah, well, it is the first Sunday. I've had my communion. I'm all prayed up. Oxtails in the oven. It's Sunday. That's what we do around here.
I know that's right. So as we pivot, I would like to start off with the scripture today. And Candace, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, Jeremiah 29:11. In times of change, we can reset in the truth, knowing that God does have a plan for us and that He will lead us on the right path when we place us and trust in Him. So I picked that scripture just because some of the work that you are doing in Gary, I believe that you are setting forth a path of change. Trying to change from the old into the new. And we definitely need that in Gary because I know that even us with the podcast, just some things that we have been trying to do in the community in different sectors, we ran into some gatekeeping, not just in Gary, but also here in Indianapolis as well. And so just wanted to share that change, in order to create real change, it takes a team, takes a village. So.
Absolutely. And I would just say how ironic and blessed this is that my older brother brought the word today. And the topic of his sermon today was, what does God think of you? And he used this exact same scripture. So I know we were supposed to talk today. For I know the plans I have for you. We have to trust. And that's what I did. That's what I'm doing. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Oh, that's what's up. So,
okay, well, thank you.
Yes.
I have to say this real quickly. I'm so excited that you said your brother shared that scripture. I know it says that when 2 or 3 come in agreement, it's already done. So there we go.
Done.
I know that's right. Y'all out here y'all make me want to go to church now.
I feel it, right?
So like we said, so I'm excited, and so I'll share the story. So how I've come to know Miss Whittington, it was a couple years ago, and I'm just scrolling through my timeline. And I see this woman, like you said, you may have been broadcasting. You're broadcasting a West Side game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, that's different. That's what's up. And I watched the second half of the game. I think my cousin may have been playing. I think, but because my cousin was there with his dad. His dad was streaming the game. But then I saw you on the side. He in the audience streaming the game. But I saw you on the side. And then I'm looking at 2 different versions of the game. And so I'm like, you were just so excited. And I'm like, who is this? And then so obviously added it and started following you. And so some of the things that you have been involved in is awesome because you have no, like, we have people who have a I don't want to say a problem, but they just don't spotlight the city in a great fashion, right?
Yeah.
They don't show the good things because we always hear about the negative things. They never show
Mm-hmm.
things about our city, like
Mm-hmm.
excellent students, or just the basketball game, or
Yeah.
businesses that'll be thriving, or just current events that'll be happening. And so every time I go to your page and or you're on the timeline, you are doing something productive and it's always highlighting somebody else. And
Well,
so
thank you.
and
Thank you
so
so much.
and I love that because again, in this new space and age where we have all these all these cell phones and we have all this technology, that needs to be championed more. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
because as we see with the newspaper and the news and all of that stuff, there's always the negative stuff. And so that's what caught my interest. And then when Candace actually reached out to you, I was just like, wow, because you was on my mind anyway. And so that's why I'm so excited about this interview because of the multiple, and that was just within the last couple of years. So I'm already
Mhm.
knowing that you've done this for a long time. And so
Yeah.
that is why I am so excited for this interview. And so as we get started, one of the things I would like to ask you as the pivot over to the interview is what are some of the things that inspired you as a kid to be where you are? Was it like, because some people like, I watched Oprah on TV and I wanted to be in
Hmm.
community, something like that.
Yeah.
So what were some of those people, some of those things?
I have some very interesting occurrences in my life that led to where I am today. But just for your knowledge as to why I'm not a sportscaster, for those who may see this. However, the Gary Community School Corporation, the school district that raised me, that happens to be one of my clients. And so when the basketball team progressed to, I believe it was state and regional games, I would travel and just broadcast live from the Gary Schools Facebook page for people who just wanted to know what was going on. What's the score? So at the end of each quarter, I go back and give my little recap and show them who was in the audience supporting the team. So that's something that I absolutely love to do, and to just showcase the entire district, which, by the way, recently returned to local control. So no more state oversight for the Gary Community School Corporation. They have a school board in place and a newly appointed superintendent. So congratulations, Gary Schools. Now,
Congratulations. Can you tell us who the superintendent is?
yeah, our new superintendent is Dr. Yvonne Stokes. She comes to us as a Fort Wayne native, but she has also served as assistant superintendent in the Munster schools. She has served as a superintendent in a school district in southern Indiana, the Southeast Hamilton schools. And so she's very well versed and ready to pick up the torch and keep going with all the strides that the Gary schools have been making. I'm excited to work with her. She's very energetic and she's all about teaching and learning. And so I'm ready to jump in with her tomorrow. She's officially started July 1st, but we had a holiday week. So tomorrow we jump 2 feet in tomorrow.
All right, that's
Yes,
amazing. I am glad to hear that. I know for a while that the state had it's taken
7
over
years.
the schools.
7
Yeah,
years.
that's a long time. So that's good to hear. Fresh blood, new blood, and I'm glad
Yeah.
that we're moving towards change.
Yes, and so it's my pleasure to assist as a consultant until they have someone in a full-time space for their public relations person. But during the time that I've been there, the past 5 years, people needed to know what was going on, and that was my job, to share the ups and the downs of the district so that people could really focus on how we were going to get ourselves back to local oversight by balancing the budget, by getting things in order per the state's oversight and what we had to do. And they did it, and here we are. And so I'm glad to have been a part of that narrative. So that's why you see me at maybe broadcasting at a play, a basketball game, a football game, a homecoming, an award ceremony. I did the full broadcast of the graduations, which we get thousands of views every year when our West Side students graduate. And so how blessed am I to be able to tell the story of a district that helped tell my story. by being, enrolled in elementary, middle, and high schools right here in Gary, where I live right now.
With that, thank you. With that being said, I know there have been for several years some concerns about the charter schools that were located in Gary. What does that look like since we do have a superintendent for the Gary school systems now?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that it was an unfortunate circumstance that when the whole concept of charter schools was born, that we let the floodgates open in the city of Gary more so than other communities. So we were looking at, where maybe a community may have one or two, we had gotten almost up to like 9 or 10. So you're thinking about a circumstance where it used to be you went to your neighborhood school, you knew what school you were going to, you walked to that school or you caught the bus to that school, and now you have this whole school choice and you have this whole avenue of businesses, because they're businesses, because they have to have a charter and they don't have the same oversight as the public schools. So it's easier to operate, easier to open, and also shiny and new makes for a difficult enrollment process. When you think about now, I have all these choices. And so it definitely changed and continues to change the face of education, not only for Gary, but in any community where there are charter schools, because for the Gary or public schools anywhere, you have to accept children, right? And without question, we accept any and all children, which is fine. But if you leave and you go to a charter school and those dollars are taken out of the public school and follows that child, if the parent decides to re-enroll their child back into the Gary schools or a public school during that school year, the dollars don't come back. So that doesn't add up when you think about $10,000 to $12,000 per child. That money stays over in charter, but we're still required by law to educate that child. A lot of people don't know those types of things. And so they'll be learning more as you follow and look at the journey of the Gary schools now under local oversight. And it's just my hope, whoever watches this, that our parents and stakeholders, community, our neighbors, to just stay engaged. You may not agree with everything, but coming to school board meetings, volunteering at schools, filling up the stands with baseball, football, wrestling, track, basketball games. This means a lot to the children and what the district is poised to be. We need everybody. And so I'll stop short there, but it's definitely a different kind of beast because you're now competing for the same group of children because you have more choices and they're not necessarily better choices. Ooh, did I say that on the live?
Hey, listen. I love transparency and honesty. And then follow-up question. As we know, there are a lot of high schools that are closed that were open when we were actually living in Gary. And from my knowledge, if I'm wrong, how many high schools do we have that is under Gary's supervision?
One. We have one public high school, and that's Gary Westside Leadership Academy, my alma mater. All others are closed. The Wallace has been demolished. The Horace Mann High School has been taken over by the Gary Housing Authority, is now owned by the Gary Housing Authority. Roosevelt was recently designated as an endangered landmark, so it's preserved. And so we're just basically engaging the community, looking for those who have a project and dollars that may want to restore that building in a fashion that it is a historic tribute, but it will not reopen as a school. And so the only other high schools in Gary are charter schools.
Wow. So we only have one high school, and that's Westside High School. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
I know I didn't name the other ones. Let's see. We have Westside. Emerson is closed and also property of the Gary Housing Authority. So the good news about these properties is that they too are poised to be repurposed, whether it's demolished and redeveloped or restored in some other manner for some other use. But that was definitely one of the complaints we would hear from the citizens, that these schools are eyesores. If they're closed and I have a nice home in this neighborhood, I don't want a shuttered, on fire all the time Lou Wallace in my front yard. And so while it costs dollars to do the demolition, we're listening and moving down the list as dollars are able to be procured to rectify those buildings that are eyesores and often crime traps in our community.
You forgot one school that's super important. Gary.
Uh-oh, William A. Wirt High
There you
School
go.
in
There you
Miller is also
The
is
White
owned by
House.
the city of Gary. It's owned by the city of Gary, and so I'm excited to find out what plans lie ahead for William A. Wirt through the Melton administration. But there, somebody is over each one of those properties, just so sometimes they'll call the district and say, "Well, I want to complain about the grass." We definitely refer them to the rightful owners of those properties.
Okay. Well, good to hear. So moving forward, hopefully we get more than one high school, because I know for parents, both of my parents went to Westside, but I do know for parents that are currently still living in the city of Gary, if they're not close to the Westside, it could be a hassle getting those kids to and from school. So we'd love to see what that actually looks like in the upcoming, months, years.
And so the last thing I will share about this, because I could go on and on about the schools the school district that I so love, is that people were saying, well, why not just build a new school? So number one, there's not just a few 40, $50 million just lying around. If you see it, let me know. It's just lying around. Two, we were not allowed to build any new facilities during the time of state oversight. So just think about it. Coming out of state oversight also opens the door of opportunity for those new buildings and raising dollars through referendums to enhance the current buildings but build new ones. So we're poised to do great things, but we just need the community to stay with us, stick with us.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I feel like Wirt High School. I went to Etna, I went to Kennedy, I went to work, and I do feel like I got a good education while I was in those schools. So, I had some great teachers, so hopefully, and also principals and other staff members. Hopefully, we can encourage people to come back and work in the city. And provide the same education or the better education that we had to the kids that are growing up there right now.
Thank
they
you
have
for saying that.
more choices besides the charter schools.
Yes, more choices, great, and just the greater placement on the value of education and what that means and how that attracts businesses. When people want to come and relocate to our area, if they have children, they want to know what's the educational system look like. So we recognize the anchor that we could potentially provide for new families and current families and what we need to do. And so the district has been doing what they need to do from a financial standpoint. That was one of the main tenets to get out of state oversight. But of course, there's the focus now on straight academics. The books are balanced. Let's get these test scores up. Let's get this enrollment up. Let's go. That's what we're saying. Let's go, Gary.
I like that. And so, just to piggyback off of that, you talked about business attraction. What role do you think redevelopment would play in that? Because, as we get into your story later, when you come home from college, right? And I always use this example here. And one of my friends we were talking about this the other day. You come home from college, you grab your career, right? You want adequate housing. Right. You want safe. You want to have somewhere where it's just safe, and then if you back in the '60s, you can work at the steel mill, 30 years, put your kids through college, right? Own a home and be good, right? This isn't like this 2024, and so we don't have those same opportunities, and so be wearing the hats that I wear in real estate. I identified the need for redevelopment in some of the properties.
Absolutely.
What role does development play in that?
It plays a major role, and as I'm sure you recall, circa 2007, 2008, with the housing industry taking a big hit, and it was also around that same time the city of Gary proper experienced tax caps, and so what that basically meant was 1, 2, 3, as far as 1%, 2%, 3% capped on what we would pay. Now, from a citizen standpoint and business standpoint, that was a win. Like, okay, my taxes are going to be lower, and that'll put more money in my pockets. But we forget or we fail to realize that when we pay less taxes, then there's less money available for those to keep up our streets, to keep up our even just keeping the lights on so that they're not blinking traffic, like all these things.
Stop right there.
impact.
Stop right
Yes,
there. Say that again, because this is not a Democrat or Republican issue.
it
This
is
is
not.
how this works.
Works,
So
paying
say it
taxes.
again. Please say
Yeah.
it again.
Yes, and building schools. So
Yes.
when we travel into another community and they say, "Oh wow, why can't we have a big gigantic campus like this?" And we're like, "Well, you already have tax caps, and then within those brackets, you have people who don't pay them at all, or who
Mm-hmm.
can't afford them, or the collection rate is so abysmal that then you had a robust general services sweeping and cleaning and cutting trees and removing snow, and then it gets cut down to less than a third of the same amount of people based on the money that's available to pay. Then you wonder why there's an additional pothole. They didn't get to it because it's not enough people. And so I learned all these things, of course, while I served as the director of communications for the city of Gary, working under Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson. And so you learn these things and you try to educate the public, but meanwhile, you're looking around at your community starting to decline. And there's several factors, and then when the taxes don't get paid, you don't have as many police officers. So then what happens to that safe and secure? And then you have the flight of those who have successfully risen above and making more. And they say, well, you know what? I'm going to move my families to South County, or we're going to go to Illinois. And then you have this cycle of this. And then you have the faithful few of us who say, well, we're going to stay and we're going to push through, and we're going to still continue to highlight those bright spots and work to reverse and turn things around for the city. And I really feel like that's the mode we're in. I'm sure of it. So redevelopment is a big piece of that. We have a lot of housing inventory here. And what you will find now is a lot of people are purchasing property and rehabbing them. But I'm going to move closer to the camera and say, but it's not us.
Yeah.
Oh, we found that out when we were going to a lot of those meetings and meeting with officials, the city officials, that people are coming into Gary and purchasing homes and rehabbing them.
Yes.
And sometimes from out of the country, let alone out of, from different states. And it's just not good. So I would, task anybody who lives in Gary that has the extra funds to
scoop up some property.
Buy property, fix it up, keep the grass cut and things like that, so that you have it. Because what we've been seeing, just across the United States, even in California, my uncle owned homes in Oakland, that eminent domain, they come in, they buy low and then sell high, and then there are families that are forced out on the street. And as we all know, I think it was the day before July 4th or on July 4th, they actually passed a bill that says if you're homeless, you get fined or you go to jail. And so most of the people that are homeless right now are veterans, people with mental health, or people who are struggling with addiction.
That's right.
And even if you don't want to live in the homes in Gary, purchase the homes for family members and fix them up so that they have somewhere to live.
And I want to be clear to say, it's not like I'm saying others from other communities are not welcome here, but I just want our native legacy residents to be mindful that these opportunities also exist for us to procure Big Mama's house. Don't just walk away from it and let it be turned over to a tax sale, and then somebody comes in, rehabs it, and then sells it back for some type of astronomical price that's, that we could have kept in the family, or, just kept our blocks up. And I just had to put that out there, that we have to capitalize on the opportunity like everybody else is.
Absolutely. I agree 100%.
Yeah. So now I want to go back, Amaro, because I never answered your very first question about my role models and how I got into communication. And I definitely have to shout out my mother in heaven, Ida Mae Stalin. When I'm the youngest of four. I have two older sister and two older brothers. So I'm the baby. They call me the mistake of 1972, the unplanned. Where did she come from? What happened here? But I was always like the unwritten rule of being the spokesperson for the family, for my siblings. Like, Mom, you don't even need to cook today. McDonald's would be the great option. We've all worked hard. We're tired. Let's just do that, And so one day she finally told me, now I'm like 8 or 9 pleading our cases all the time on behalf of my older siblings. She said, you need to go into PR. And I was like, what is PR? She said, you'll find out when you get older, but people in PR are make people think what you want them to think. And they're very persuasive. And I was like, I'm going to put that on the list. And so fast forward to today, she was absolutely right. I do have my own PR firm. But another role model, in all seriousness, too, my mother will always be my role model, but right across the street from me lived Dr. Whittington Chambers, a famed communications professor at Purdue. And it's funny how you know your neighbors as I'm just riding down the street. I didn't realize growing up how highly regarded she was in the field of communications and in the community until it was time for me to need a letter of reference going to Howard University and trying to secure a scholarship. And when she wrote that letter about me, I promise I didn't know who she was talking about, but she wrote from a standpoint of what she saw in me going through my career through Ernie Pyle, Tolleson, West Side. And while I had the grades and the SAT scores and everything, I truly believe that letter from Dr. Whittington Chambers got me into Howard University on a full scholarship. And so I will forever be indebted to her for being a great role model to me and for always saying, well, Chelsea, it's whatever you want to do. You can do anything you want to do. And she was absolutely right.
That is awesome. That's awesome.
Very much so.
Yes, that's what's up.
And back to your mom for saying that you needed to be a PR, the power of persuasion gets you a lot of pieces and then a lot of doors.
Yes. And I just try to persuade people now not to have McDonald's for dinner, but more serious things like buy that property in Gary, step out on faith, map out a plan and see it through, that you can make a difference in your corner of the world, whether it be in Sheboygan, Indianapolis, or right here in the G. There's work for all of us to do, and we need to, stay in the game. Stay in the game.
It's enough for us to go around. We ain't got to beat each other up over it. It's more than enough for us to go around. So I agree with that totally. But
this is kind of on a joking side. Are any of these black jobs?
Well, somebody please explain to me what a black job is, because
I don't know. I was asking. I have no idea.
I have created so many black jobs over this past 4 years. I'm like, nah, I just thought a job was a job, man. But right. You learn something new every debate, huh?
I just job is what I was asking if you knew, were any of those black jobs.
I just called to that like literally 2 days ago. Cause I'm like, I saw these videos. People like, it was a guy and he was like on a golf course. And he was asking all the black men that were golfing with him, what's a black job? And then they were like, one was like, I'm a CEO of a marketing firm. Another one was like, well, he was like, I own several foods businesses. Another one was like, well, I'm an executive at a bank. And there's probably about a good 20 of them, older gentlemen, 40s and 50s and 60s. And I'm like, what? And then so I have to Google black job. I'm like, oh, I see what happened here.
Yes, it's trending for sure. Like, really? That's what you're calling them, black jobs? Okay.
Well, guy said he was a physicist, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I'm just like, okay. But anyway,
let it be black, man. Good.
Right. So you talked about Howard University and then communications and public relations. Is it public?
Yes. So I got my first degree from Howard in broadcast journalism, but the internships that I had while at Howard garnered my interest in public relations proper.
Okay. And so can you talk about one of your first positions as you transitioned from college into the real world?
Yeah. So I was super nervous, as we had talked off camera prior to, because broadcast journalism, I really thought I was going to be Oprah. For real. I thought that she would retire, and this woman just kept working and getting bigger and bigger. And I was like, I got to do something else. I was coming home to Chicago, Northwest Indiana. I was like, I could just slide in there and get my own show. And it was just, I was just so mistaken or misguided. I don't know, but I knew that getting a master's degree would be important in my journey through this career of communications, because I knew I also wanted to ultimately be able to teach and stay in the classroom. And during that time, a master's degree was required at minimum, still maybe in some places and spaces, some universities. And so my first job when I got back, I'm so thankful, because most summers while I was in college, I worked at the John Will Anderson Boys and Girls Club in Gary on Fifth Avenue. And for the first couple of summers, I was the summer worker supervisor. So I just supervised the youth. So it didn't have anything really to do with communications, but the employees or the leaders at the Boys and Girls Clubs knew that I was going to school for journalism. So my first job when I got back home to Gary was the journalism program coordinator at the Boys and Girls Club. So I taught students how to write. I taught them how to speak and write news stories and articles. We would go on field trips. I'd take them to ABC, NBC, CBS, just to show them what a career in communications would look like. And it's kind of ironic that I wasn't in it, but I was in it because I was teaching them about what their careers could be. And I still keep in touch with some of those young people. And so that was my very first job. But then I transitioned over to the Lake Area United Way, which was an organization that raised money for organizations like the Boys and Girls Club and Girl Scouts. And I really got my feet wet in my field, age 23, as the director of marketing and communications for the Lake Area United Way. Sounded like a big job. It was, but I loved how they treated me, in that I was young in the field, but they treated me as a colleague, but they took me under their wings to help me to learn about corporate America and how to move in Northwest Indiana. And there are people now 30 years later, it's like, I remember when you first got into corporate America. So it was a blessing all around, and it prepared me for my career in entrepreneurship for sure.
That's what's up. That's what's up. My question then, so what led you, because when we were talking before the show, we talked about, well, obviously that's the story you want to share, right?
Yeah.
And you transition. So can you just segue us to
I'll
that?
keep it moving. So I've held quite a few different jobs in the field of communications. And again, I feel like it prepared me for entrepreneurship, in that I was doing communications for different entities. So I've talked about a couple of nonprofits, and then I also have worked for casinos. I was at the Empress and Horseshoe Casino. So I was actually in communications when the Empress Casino in Hammond, Indiana changed over to Horseshoe. So that was a big job to have to be able to communicate not only to the internal employees, but the general community that, hey, we're changing over from one brand to another. You have people who are worried about their jobs. You have people who are just worried about, will this fly? Will this work? Will the word get out? And obviously Horseshoe is still there, so they're doing just fine. But they're all the casinos are doing fine. So I really got my PR legs in that industry as well. But I was very, very fortunate in the year 2005 when I landed a position at Johnson Publishing Company. And that is the publisher of Ebony and Jet magazines, creator of the Ebony Fashion Fair Cosmetics. And I actually saw the communications manager job on Indeed, back in the day when Indeed was a new thing. And I applied for that communications position on Indeed, and I got a call back for an interview. And so that in itself was an honor, that I got a chance to go over to Chicago to the Ebony and Jet building right on Michigan Avenue. And I met with the then director of human resources, who's still a friend of mine to this day. And I had, at that time, we didn't have a jump drive. We had an actual portfolio where I could show pictures of my work, articles I've written, press releases I've written, just sharing my experience. Mm-hmm. And so the director of human resources was very impressed with my work. And she said, I want you to meet our CEO, Linda Johnson Rice. And Linda Johnson Rice is the daughter of John H. Johnson, the founder of Ebony Magazine. And I was like, I would love to. And she said, oh, but she's not in her office. She went around and she said she hasn't come in yet. She said, but I'll make sure that we set up another meeting for you and we'll have you back in to have a conversation with her. And I said, okay. Now, keep in mind, this is 2005, so we didn't have all these flashy smartphones and things like that. I did have a cell phone, and I had turned it off. But as soon as I got outside of the building, I turned the phone on to call my sister to tell her how the interview went. And before I could dial my sister's number, my phone rang, and I saw it was a 312-322 number. I knew that was the prefix for Ebony. So I was like, hello? And it said, Chelsea, Mrs. Rice is in the building. Can you come back? I turned right back around, and during that time, it was Feed the Meter in 2005. I looked at that meter, and I was like, they're going to have to just write me a ticket. I turned around, and I ran back inside. I went upstairs, caught my breath, and I went right into the office of the president. I showed her my portfolio, and she, too, was impressed. And she said, Gary, huh? I know some great people who have come out of Gary. And of course, Michael Jackson was one, but others that she named. And I said, yes. I said, all I need is an opportunity, and I will be an asset to your team that you could never imagine. And she closed my portfolio and looked me in the eye and said, you're hired. I was the first person interviewed out of 500 applicants, and I got that job on that day. And I stayed there for 5 years, and it was some of the best times of my life. And yes, I got a $50 ticket that I gladly paid. That was sitting on my windshield when I came downstairs. I said, that's okay, I got the job. And I was able not only to change my life, but change a lot of other people's lives, because people in Gary were really proud of me being in Chicago, representing a world-known brand. And my name appeared in the masthead every month in Ebony magazine as a communications manager. And I just got to meet so many amazing people, celebrities and politicians, and opening the doors for my other friends and family members, whether it was for jobs or them getting to go to screenings, concerts, makeup, tickets to fashion shows. It just did my heart so much joy to be able to share that amazing experience with so many people that I love. So
that sounds like, hold on. That sounds like nepotism. Okay, go ahead.
It was a hook up. I'm not even going to front. My family members, my sisters, I'm sure they're still wearing some of the body wash, lipstick. I got to name lipsticks. I got to just, when we would sample things, whether it would be a product or not, they were like, well, we're not doing that, so take all that home. And so I was like, all my sisters and my girlfriends are going to get all this makeup. I can't wear it all. And so, yeah, nepotism, if you want to call it that, then hey, I know others that do that all the time.
All the time. That's
yes.
And so, like, again, that's why I like to reemphasize, like, that is why this platform was created, to spotlight individuals like yourself. And like I said before, like, we wouldn't have known any of this, right? And that's history in the making. You were working downtown. That's crazy.
Yes.
You know,
and here's one little crazy add-on to this that made my whole experience of being at Ebony worthwhile. We were doing a promotion called Win a Date with an Ebony Bachelor. And one of the bachelors was Music Soul Child. And so my assignment was just to, once the winner was selected, I just had to chaperone them on the date. So they flew me to Philly, and I sat across the room, you know, just make sure the promotion went well, that she didn't just jump on music and, you know, like be inappropriate. And, you know, we write the article was written rather about how the date went, et cetera. But meanwhile, it was over the times that he was featured either in Ebony or Jet that we became friends. And anytime he'd come into town for a concert, his manager would send me and my friend tickets to the to his concerts. He was that's what my husband at now kept saying, well, we're friends, right? That's what y'all say. So it's time to make the real commitment. So once we were in his dressing room after a concert, and I said, Music, if this guy ever asks me to marry him, would you sing at our wedding? And he said, absolutely. Just give me a little time, give me the details, and we'll make it happen. He said, as soon as he make it happen. I was like, okay, thanks. So fast forward to that next year on my husband's, I think it was his 35th birthday, he surprises me and proposes to me at church with all my family and friends in the building. I didn't know they were coming and all of that. But music made good on his promise. And we got married in Jamaica, but he came to Gary and sang at my wedding reception in Marquette Park.
That
And
is
with,
That's awesome.
yeah. And I wasn't on Facebook yet. This was 2009. And, on the program, it said First Dance by the couple, Love by Music Soul Child. So everybody was like, okay, hit it, play the record. And he came walking up those back steps. Yeah. And all the phones just went up in the air. I was like, what? Everybody just started recording. I was like, this is what they do now. Yes. It was amazing. One of the best days of our lives. Yeah. Music came to Gary.
That's what's up. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. All because of Ebony and Jet magazine. See, you don't burn bridges, right?
Right.
Absolutely. No, Maru talked about nepotism. It was some things going around. Was it last week or whatever? So, like you said, other communities, other cultures have been doing it for a very long time. We have to start tapping into that and stop gatekeeping from our own people.
Yes.
We don't do it enough. We don't do it enough. We don't do it enough. That just me on the tangent. We don't do it enough. People who look like you or from your area. Well, let me backtrack. When you are in a position of power to hire people, and hiring people, obviously your job technically will be secure, right? When you're hiring, right? So it should not bother you to hire people who look like, I
know somebody. Here's their resume. Yes. Use my name as a reference. I do all those things. Yes.
And so we don't do that enough. And then we use this thing of fear as if someone will find out. They do it all the time.
All the time.
I'm sure you found, as you moved over from the Ebony and Jet space, you worked in straight up corporate America. I'm sure you knew somebody who was an executive who had a theater degree. And you're like, how in the world did this happen?
How?
Or an acting degree. And
Yvonne on floor 3 is your aunt. Oh, now I get it. That's your aunt. That's your sister. Okay.
So we don't do it enough. So I digress. But so as you transition from that wonderful space, and then when you moved into your next step of your journey, how was that? And then talk about how that moved you to be in the passion of academia and instructing and educating.
Yeah. So all along through those positions, in fact, when I was at Ebony, I was teaching at Valparaiso University. I taught some graphic design and PR classes, communications classes. But the commute to Chicago and trying to get back to Valpo, I had to let it go. But no sooner than I let that go, I wrote a letter to the head of the Department of Continuing Studies at Indiana University Northwest saying, even though this is not a degree department, I'm looking to teach classes that add value to people's lives, whether it's event planning, public speaking, introduction to public relations. And this was just a letter with my resume, and they created a role for me. That was in 1999. I'm still there in 2024. I have moved into different departments, but right now, for the past 9 years, I've been in the Department of Cure. And this is a program that has what's called Senior University. So I teach senior citizens life skills such as computer literacy, using their smartphone, how to get on social media, how to turn your computer on, how to send emails. And I always have a waiting list for my classes. They just constantly stay full. People are sending their parents. It's the best place for me to be. I feel like I'm in the room with my parents, just telling them, hey, this is how you use your smartphone, because their kids and their grandkids rush right through it. Like, Grandma, let me just do it for you. And they want to learn themselves. And so I have been in that space teaching, and I look forward to it every time. And I also built an arm to my communications firm called CWIT University, where we go out in the community and teach all types of classes to all different ages, businesses, organizations who want to learn how to do what we do. So academia is just in my blood. And I was always going to find a way to fit that in, even when I was in corporate, that I wanted to teach. And then ultimately, upon retirement, that's one of the things that I want to continue to do. If I just teach and not do anything else, I would love to be in that space as a professor.
So, quick question: how would one get their parents or grandparents signed up for the program at I graduated from IU with undergrad. I just want to put that out there. So how would someone that would be interested in getting their grandparents or aunts and uncles or parents signed up for your class?
So all they have to do is go to the Indiana University Northwest page or iun.edu and key in Senior University, and it'll come up. Or if they just Google Indiana University Northwest Senior University, all the programs, contact information will come up regarding the courses and the director of how they enroll, because it's absolutely free, because it's a grant-funded program. And so that also is just a great attribute of what, keeping our seniors busy. They get to be on campus. They have the rights and privileges to go to the library. And so I see where a lot of them, it's 55 and up. So I'm almost old enough to take my own class now. I'm just a few years shy of being in the senior university, but my oldest student was 91. So wow. It's easy. And I can also shoot you that information, Candace.
Please do. Thank you so much, because I want to get a lot of seniors signed up for that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I need my mama, because my mama be texting me. She just started learning how to text.
Wow.
She's be texting these crazy acronyms like.
What does that mean, Mom?
WYD. I'm like, Mama, what is this? I'm like,
you made it up.
Man, what you doing? I'm like, no, you're not telling. You can't text like that. Like, no. I'm like, no. She's much better, but it's like these long, crazy acronyms. I'm like, oh, no, you can't just use the first letter of each word in a sentence.
Getting creative. You gotta love it.
No, oh my goodness, just to see my face, and she thought I was being mean. So I'm like, that's not how it works. I blame my sister.
That's your puzzle for the day. Don't you all have a word for the day? We should start using your mom's acronyms, and let's all try to guess what they mean.
I'm like, but she's a supporter, so I'm just kidding. But no, that's cool. That is actually
cool.
That is amazing, because I remember, I think it was one of my relatives, they talked to me and they said that they were at the disability department, Social Security department. Okay. And they said that they were there and the workers were yelling at the elderly people trying to sign up for like their retirement benefits or their disability benefits. And it was one of my younger family members, and they were screaming and yelling at people who were like 75 and 85, and these people don't, they didn't grow up in a generation with all
right.
And they're like, I felt so bad.
Yeah.
Right there, they went over there because they were there with their parent. They was like, I went over there and actually read what was on the computer screen and kind of like walked them through everything that they needed to, get through in order to get their benefits. And I'm like, these are some of the people who have like paved the way for us.
Yeah, we stand on their shoulders.
Exactly. And so she was just like, the people who are working in those, at those jobs, they don't want to take the time out to help the seniors, and the seniors are getting frustrated because they don't know how to do it or they don't understand. And so I think it's beneficiary, to them to kind of learn those skills so that they can feel like they are independent and they can go and do it themselves.
Yeah. And in addition, I teach the classes periodically at the Urban League as well as the YWCA. So this week I have a 4-week course that starts on Wednesday at the YWCA of Northwest Indiana. It's here in Gary. And so for those who are already members of the Y, the class is free to them. And then those who just want to come to the class is only $5. So it's an hour and a half every Wednesday for 4 Wednesdays straight. And then I'll be back in the fall to do it again. And we just tell them, bring your laptops, bring your tablet, bring your smartphones, get all your questions answered, and we'll go over the basics. This is a monitor. This is a keyboard. This is your power button. Those simple things that, a lot of times loved ones just rush right through. In my class, you can ask me the same question over and over and over again, and I'm going to answer it the same way until it clicks for you. That's what I'm here for. And so I love doing that. I really feel like it's a ministry for sure. And there's a great need. So I'll continue to do that in perpetuity as long as the Lord says so.
All right. Well, thank you
That
for
is,
that. Love that.
that's what's up. And see, like I said before, that's God's work. Like when you're, providing that type of education.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when we growing up, we always had two things that were off limits: uh, old people, I would say elderly people, and newborn babies, right? Kids.
Babies. Yep.
And so, you're providing that resource for them to, sometimes they may not have the adequate training on some of those things. And so, some of that education can, extend some of their days, right? Because I got 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. My 3-year-old gets frustrated when she can't articulate what she wants, right? So
Mm-hmm.
imagine as that magnified
Adult.
70-year-old,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
frustration on not being able to communicate to someone via text. All
Yes.
jokes aside, right? So you
Yeah.
having the patience to do that, and also the love and the heart to do that speaks volumes. And so kudos to you. That's what's
Thank
up.
you. But the other part of that that's even more important in my mind is how they are taking advantage of our seniors by swindling them
Absolutely.
out of their money, telling them, here, just press this
Yeah.
or click on this. And they take over their devices and clean out their bank accounts, or they get these phone calls. We talk about all of fraud protection and certain questions that they ask you. You need to hang up. You should never be giving your social security number over the phone. You should never, and they feel like they're at the mercy of these people who can help them. And these are complete strangers who are looking to swindle them. So again, you're right. It's that ministry to try to protect as many in that population, because it's going to be me one day. Technology is always changing. So by the time I'm 70 something, there'll be something that I don't understand. And then I'll be calling my nieces like, hey, what is this? So I owe it to my ancestors, right?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And there's a saying that somebody used to say to me all the time, like, don't ever laugh at old people, young people, because you get old.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah,
If you're
absolutely.
blessed enough, you'll get to see the age that they're seeing now, for sure. My dad is 93, so if he watches this, I'll be sure to show him the playback. So hey, Daddy, but I'm taking you all with me just to turn my oven off. I apologize.
Oh, absolutely. No worries. No worries.
It doesn't get any more live than this. Okay.
That's the oxtails.
Yes. All right. Back to the minute.
Can you talk more about your as you moved out of corporate America and started, your own business? Can you talk about that experience and some of the challenges you had with that, and
I
how?
can absolutely. Thank you for asking me that, because, I didn't just jump from ebony into entrepreneurship. I worked in a few more places. I worked at US Cellular. So I was driving for 3 years. I drove up toward O'Hare Airport, and it was a high level executive position, high paying, but it wasn't always. Money is not everything when you're being berated and questioned about your ability in a corporate environment. So I will just leave it at that to say, while I learned a lot there, I learned more about myself and my self-worth than anything else. That never again would I be talked to that way, addressed in that manner. And fortunately, they had a program in place where you could rate your supervisor on the way out. Lit her up. Okay, so now I'm done. But I left corporate as an invitation from Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson to be a part of her historic administration, the first female African-American mayor in the state of Indiana. And she asks me to be her director of communications. What an honor. Yeah. So I spent a term there and into the beginning of her second term. But I had always said, I don't want to be in politics. I couldn't go to the grocery store. I couldn't go to the movies. Somebody was asking me about a pothole, why their tree wasn't trimmed. I mean, you see me here with this.
I'm not laughing, but I know my people.
And my Bible. You see me going to church. But she's like, baby, can you take my number down and have the mayor to call me in the morning? I'm like, I guess. I'm at church. But I did it. I did it, and I loved it for what it was at that time. And so, yeah, thanks, Mayor Karen. But it's funny how things come full circle because I left there and I ended up contracting and then working for the Chicago Urban League. And now Karen Freeman Wilson is the CEO of Chicago Urban League. I had nothing to do with that, but they're still my client. So she and I still get to work together. So that's just the way that God works. But to answer your question, whew, I was at a Martin Luther King breakfast in Chicago where Mayor Rahm Emanuel was speaking. I won't forget the day. And my phone rang and it just kept ringing and it was a 219-746 number. If you know Gary, 746, that's the cell phone for police officers. And I'm like, oh, Lord, they didn't pull my husband over. What is going on? They're going to, call me and be like, hey, man, we got a situation. I was just nervous. So I was like, y'all, it's the police. I'm going to go call this number back and find out what's going on. So I stepped outside into the lobby and I was like, hello, this is Chelsea. They're like, Chelsea, about time you returned our call. I was like, who is this? And at the time, it was Officer Simon Lilly, who at the time was the director of security for the Gary.
That's our classmate. That was our classmate.
Okay, so it was Simon, and I was like, what's wrong? He was like, nothing. We were having a cabinet meeting here at the school district, and they were talking about they need somebody to do PR on behalf of the district while we're in state takeover. That we've had a couple of people, but it didn't work out. Would you be interested in applying? I told them I knew you. I was like, wow, thank you. I'm like applying. I said, is this a position? He said, no, it's more of a contract. So that kind of got my wheels turning because keep in mind, I had still been doing some contractual work, but I was in my 9-to-5 with the Urban League because I wanted my benefits. Right. I wanted my pay every 2 weeks. I was just in that mindset that I need a job. But when he said, you have to put together a proposal of what you want to get paid. And this is going to be like a multi-year opportunity. And so that really got me to thinking. So I had to have a sit down with my husband, like, babe, if I do this right and they accept my proposal, I could leave my job. And he said, I've been waiting on you to do that. I don't know how long. He said, you work for all these companies. Why couldn't you go and do these services full time for more than one and make more money? And I was like, there, Mr. Whittington, you might be on to something. And I said, but if this doesn't work, you have my back because, I have never not worked for someone else at this time. So I put in a proposal. They accepted it. This was in 2019. And it was that contract that catapulted me forward to go ahead and launch my own business. So I started my business on my birthday, March 30th, 2019, and I reported to the Gary schools as their PR consultant on April 1st, that Monday. And I've been with them ever since.
Well, congratulations to that. But would you say that Officer Lilly did some nepotism there?
Right. You know what? He was just working his network of who he knew, and it made sense to have somebody who lived in the community. If they were already catching heat for being an agency from out of town, right? They're coming from out of town. They're taking over our schools. They're not Black. And that's what I loved about working with MGT, because I could tell them these things. I'm like, that's not going to fly well. You're not from Gary, right? So you can't really say that like that, and they counted on me for that counsel and to deliver those hard messages like, we're broke, or our test scores didn't come back the way, I live here. I went to school here, so it was a smart hire. And to this day, some people still don't realize that I never worked for the Gary schools. I worked for the consulting firm, which was fine because my heart was in the right place, regardless of where the check was coming from. And again, I was letting the taxpayers know, you're not even paying my salary. So, so you don't even have to worry about that. And I'm going to represent you. And I have been. And so I'll be there working with them through October. But that was the contract that allowed me to leave corporate America, nonprofit America, but I still have those same people that I used to work for who are my clients now. Isn't God good? God is so good.
He's amazing.
Yeah. So these past 5 years, I've created a portfolio of more than 70 clients, Northwest Indiana and Chicagoland. And so We are happy to serve. I've extended my team. I have contractors or employees who work with me to help get the job done. And we're just getting started, y'all.
And see,
5 to 10.
I love stories like that because that is so inspirational to up and coming entrepreneurs. Because, like, it's an interesting conversation because some people, like, we get it. Some people, they're okay with having a 9 to 5, right, and working for someone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Others, like myself, and I'm sure you two, are not comfortable in that space because of, like, it's in a way it's kind of traumatizing because when
Mm-hmm.
someone talks to you that don't look like you in a manner, you can feel it come up. Like, my mom would
Oh,
never talk to me that way. You
yes,
understand what I'm saying? And
yes,
that it goes sideways quick. And so
yes,
those people are the people that don't need to be under somebody. I'm one of those people included. And so when you transition over into having your own space, obviously it comes with a lot of more stresses, but the peace of mind that you have,
yes, yes,
because you don't have to have someone telling you how to look, when to come in, when to take off, and all. Like, it's dependent on your daily routine. And
exactly.
also,
And no
and
2 days
also,
are the same for
yeah,
me. No 2 days are the same.
yes, and when you meet with somebody, they are meeting with the person who's running everything. You're not
Yeah,
a representative, so you're getting 100% of that. You're not
yes,
getting just a little
yes,
4%
indeed.
and everybody. No, no, no. I know. Trust me. So that's inspirational because that people don't believe that opportunities like that don't exist, and they really do. It's
Yeah,
just meeting
yeah.
the opportunity. So
But
that's
I was on roadblock, I will tell you. It has been. I'm the daughter of entrepreneurs. My parents owned
mm,
gas stations in Gary for 40 years.
mm,
So what was wrong with me?
yeah,
I
yeah,
worked in their
yeah.
businesses, but I was just that one that said, I'm gonna balance my budget. I know this is how much is coming in, this is how much is going out, this is how much I'm saving. But again, it was all in God's time. I wasn't ready to be an entrepreneur in my 30s and most of my 40s. So by the time I hit 50, I had got my stride. I built my network. I built some respect and credibility. I built my knowledge base. And so then it was time. It's time. And so I'm in the throes of it. Is it easy? Absolutely not. But it is the best decision I could have made on behalf of me, my spouse, my family. I'm able to bless others, creating scholarships, give back to nonprofit organizations that I've long revered. And then, like you said, making my own hours and controlling my destiny are a big piece of the narrative that keep me in this space.
Your
Mhm.
balance. And so, like, and so, yes, take it in, because Miss Wilson, just take it in, because it's yes, you're going. And see, this is another thing two people don't realize. It's always going to be uncomfortable. It's
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know. Like, you don't know, right? You
Yeah.
don't know. You don't know if when you do leave, how your bills are going to be, right? But you have
Yeah.
that innate sense in yourself to say, you know what? I'm not even
Yeah.
worried about Plan B. It's Plan A till I die, and I'm gonna ride it all
All all
because
day.
you can always go back to them for a job. That's just the back, like the safety net, right? You like,
Yeah.
if it's bad, I can always do this, But like, I'm chasing my desire. I'm chasing my dream. I'm chasing
Yeah.
something bigger than me. I'm chasing legacy. So yes, it's going to always be uncomfortable. But the saying is, if it was easy, everybody could do it.
Everybody would do
Everybody would be doing it. And can I just say that there's also other levels of difficulty when you talk about balance and you talk about being married. I'm a married woman of 15 years, and I'm with someone who has a corporate job, a supervisory job that has hours and start time and
Right.
finish time, and you leave the facility and then you're done, and helping your loved ones to understand that it doesn't work like that in entrepreneurship. I'm going to have to pick up a call on a Saturday. I'm going to do a podcast on a Sunday. I'm going to have to cover a client on a Saturday night sometimes. But being respectful of the relationships that you have, my marriage being my number one relationship, the consideration of my husband's needs and his feelings that sometimes I had to be taught and reminded about with things, even like with social media. He had to call to my attention that I have such a public life on social media to be mindful of if somebody is saying something in the comments that may be disrespectful to him that I didn't even see, a comment of my appearance that may be out of bounds, and just all those types of things that may seem small to some, but when you are engrossed in a relationship of love and respect, that's a whole separate set of rules to follow to ensure that your home life is intact before you even think about the keys to the business, right? Because everything that I'm doing is for my family, for my spouse, and for my well-being in life. And so if I lose all of that, then it's not worth being an entrepreneur. So I just wanted to put that in there, that you got to be mindful and respectful of the life that you have, to build that balance and to help them to understand the differences in being an entrepreneur versus reporting to somebody else that that's your problem because it's 5 o'clock. Not with me. It's my problem 5 o'clock. It's my problem at 6 o'clock. It's my problem at 10 o'clock tonight because I own the place. And so it's a work in progress all the time of being understanding and just, staying on your A game in all those spaces of being a wife. You see why I have those oxtails cooking? I get it. My husband's got to eat too, but he's going to eat well, and so it's a journey. It's a journey, but I'm here for it all, and the rewards are great though. When it's time where he takes off vacation, I can plan too and say, okay, well, I'm close up shop, or I'm going to get a team member to cover for me. So there are pros and cons, but I wouldn't change anything of the journey that I've had thus far.
Sounds good. It definitely is important to set those boundaries in place.
I got a question before we go because we ran over. So
Okay.
Make sure we do the word of the day before we end, and then we can close.
My question. So the word of the day is change, right? So in the Swahili version is Maba. I have practiced this before. Mabadiliko. And replace something. So the definition: replace something with something else, especially something of the same kind that is newer or better. Substitute one thing for another. And so the cool thing about your story, and she chose the word, right, which is fitting. You had a lot of changes in your life.
Yes.
And a lot of changes in the city. And so over your years, it's just cool to see people like yourself. As I mentioned before, people like Rosalind, right? People like Cynthia Williams, just the people that makes up some of the fabric of the city that's doing cool things and hearing the stories behind the scene. And so my question to you was going to be about the businesses on Lake Street real quick before we conclude here. Can you talk more about that? Because I'm very interested in that.
Well, it's funny you should ask such a timely question, in that on the first Friday of every month, they do a showcase of Lake Street, and just the businesses. And so two in particular that I have interfaced with is the Dialogue Wine Bar and the Miller Cigar Bar, owned by a husband and wife team, Monica Blakemore and her husband, Greg Tatum. So Monica Blakemore Tatum and Greg Tatum. Now that to me is a whole separate level when you go into business with your spouse, right? And so he has his own security company, but they've decided they've renovated 2 properties on Lake Street adjacent to one another, where you can go to one side for the wine, spoken word experience. The other side, you want to get a stick, have some music, watch some sports, and it's all Black owned right in the center of Lake Street, which is amazing. Then there are other businesses like your staple of Miller Pizza that's been there for decades. And then you have a new restaurant that just opened last week, Brass Idol, Caribbean Roots, Tiny's Coffee Bar, Vibrations. And then you have your Gary Public Library that's still on that strip, among a few others, and Tequila and Tacos, which is under renovation right now. But it just gives us an opportunity with the newly remodeled train station right there, the double track, that people can literally catch the train into Gary, get off and walk and shop and eat, and then even walk on down to the beach. If they got their good walking shoes on, they can get on the way down to the beach. And then there are businesses on the beach as well, plus Marquette Park Pavilion. So that's a greatly developed area of the city. What's next, though, if you're following the news, is the redevelopment of downtown Gary. So I would just encourage you and plant a seed to say, watch us work, because downtown is getting ready to be something amazing. Stay tuned.
Well, thank you for sharing such great information with us. We are excited that you had the opportunity to come on. I know we've been tag teaming you for a while, so it was good that you actually made it in. Just please keep us in mind for any upcoming events or partnerships. We would love to be a part of your team.
I love it.
Do you have any questions?
Well, I would just say that once this link is posted, I'm going to share it with my followers of that number in approximately 40,000 folks. So I'm going to make sure that I put the spotlight on you like I'm supposed to do. It's my calling. We can all be at the table eating well together. So let's just continue that mindset. When people have platforms, businesses, organizations, if you can't support them at level 1, you can share their information. It costs nothing to hit the share button.
Yes.
Recommend someone, and that's what I pride myself in doing. So know that this podcast will make its way through my network in a mighty way. And I encourage people to follow me and check out my website, cwit.biz, with CWIT PR. We help build brands. We help through email marketing, social media development. We come and we live broadcast at your events. I'm a professional MC, and I would just love to see your business grow. And if there's any way we can help, then definitely reach out. That's what we're here for.
Thank you for your
wisdom. I sure will. Thank you so much. This was an amazing interview.
Yes, thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for just everything that you're doing. Like you said, we can eat and get full together. Nobody has to starve. So
let's get back. Come on.
But with that said, we will conclude tonight. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you again for this interview. This is wonderful. With that said, see you guys later. Enjoy your Sunday.
Bye. Enjoy your weekend.
Take care.